But the specific context that I'm talking about is having done that and talked to defendants all across the nation and even viewed their body cam evidence all across the nation and done professional court filings based on those. Not a single situation, not one, did the sheriff step in any of those counties and act as a go-between between the federal agents and the houses they were wrecking and destroying at 6 o'clock in the morning before the sun comes up. As the sheriff, I want to know that you're going to stand between me and the feds, because in case anybody hasn't noticed, it's only getting worse, and I imagine that they're going to do more before this election is over with. So are you going to stand between the federal government and us, specifically federal agents? And I asked this question to Rick, and I got a sideways answer a long time ago about our feds being good guys. Well, I've dealt with guys that have had to deal with these Joint Terrorism Task Force, and they're the ones that are being extradited in the dark of night. Are you gonna stand between me and the feds in the means of, are you gonna examine the evidence that they're presenting? Are you gonna serve the warrants that they're coming to? Because I can tell you what's happening in other states across the nation is that they're having to go around certain sheriffs and get magistrates in neighboring counties to write the warrants. Your job as the sheriff is to serve the warrants in this county. Are you going to stand between a person and the federal government and stop them from taking us into places where we cannot get a change of venue? In case you haven't looked at any of the J6 cases in Washington, D.C., there's been about 900 that have requested a change of venue, which is their constitutional right, because they should be tried in a federal court in their own home state where they can actually get a jury of their peers. But once they've been taken and held captive, they can't escape. So they're still being held 4 years later, 3.5 years later. They're still being held in federal prisons and malnourished and beaten. And once they're gone, once they've been pulled out of their county, they have no power to do anything. What are you guys going to do when the situation arises again? Because I don't imagine it's going to stop from here.
And for that question, we'll begin with Mr. James.
To answer your question, Andrew, I will stand between the federal government and you and support you in any way I can, short of getting in a shootout with federal agents. It's not my intention to put my deputies in a situation where they are shooting back and forth with federal agents. However, I will intervene politically and legislatively if necessary, or even legally. Because I do have concerns, just like you, about January 6th, and there being a federal political witch hunt for certain individuals who entered a capital under the guise of what we've been told is an insurrection, when the reality is typically insurrections would require somebody to hold on to the property without it being, physical force would be required to have them removed. But I will tell you, I will not allow federal agencies, nor will I assist federal agencies to come in here and do that. But like I said, short of getting into a shootout with them.
Mr. Hoover.
The first thing I would do is I would review the documents that they have to make sure that they had the proper documentation to do what they were doing. And unfortunately, if they have proper documentation, I honestly don't see a sheriff stepping in front of the federal government when they do have the proper documentation to do what they're doing. Because, like Mr. James just said, what you're going to do is you end up fighting with other law enforcement agencies. Somebody's going to get hurt, and hopefully shots wouldn't be fired. But it's a possibility when you get into a struggle like this over what we're talking about now. I don't like what happened any more than anybody else does, but I am not going to go against the law. I'll stand up for our Constitution and everything else under the sun, but I am not going to break or violate any laws.
Mr. Harrison.
Andrew, some folks in this room might think that that's kind of a crazy question, that the federal government would come in here and strip our rights, take our guns, issue warrants for arrest for something that happened at the Capitol, then in my eyes, it's more of a political attack than anything. I don't think the question's crazy. I've worked around the federal government. I have friends that work for the federal government. But if it come down to the federal government actually coming in here, and I hope that they don't, and I don't think that they will, but yes, the sheriff of whichever county that they're operating in is the chief law enforcement officer. It goes through the sheriff, not the assistant sheriff, not a captain, not anybody on special ops, sheriff. Yes, they're going to come through me. Yes, I will vet every document that they have. That's what we do. Take that back. That's what we're supposed to do. But short answer to your question, yes, I will stand up. I will be the wall between the federal government and our rights. That's what we're here for.
Mr. Taylor.
When it comes to that January 6th question, I heard it at another debate that we were at, and yes, the sheriff, they present their evidence, and I should observe, what do you have? And if it's not good, then I should say it's not happening, and be willing to literally do whatever it takes to protect you. But if you go to the Capitol on January 6th, and even if there's some plants in the crowd saying, you should go in, if you know that's illegal, it doesn't matter if everyone goes in. You don't go in, it's illegal. And if you've got Nancy Pelosi's gavel stuffed in a drawer at your house, and they have a warrant saying that you were there, they've got pictures, you stole something, you've committed a crime. And yes, it's political. 100% I believe there's so much political in it. But you've got to be smart enough to not commit a crime in another state. And I don't think they all committed a crime. I think a lot of them didn't do anything other than do what everybody else was doing. But guess what? Some of that turned out to be a crime when they ended up in rooms they shouldn't have been in. So that's my position on that.
Mr. Blankenship.
Thank you very much for the question. So, we've talked a lot about the Second Amendment, and what this is a Fourth Amendment issue. Your protections against illegal search and seizure. And it would be my job as sheriff to make sure that any documentation that has been signed by a judge outside of our guys presenting it does meet that threshold, that probable cause has been met, first and foremost. If it hasn't, I'll be honest with you, I will not ask my men and women to stand between you and the federal government, but I will. And I can guarantee you, I've seen a group of them here in this building right now, that even if I don't ask them, if I tell them that's where I'm going, they're going to follow me because they know the leader that I am. If you are taken into custody and removed at that point in time, outside of our control or our knowledge, there's not much that we can do for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the question.